She called me her ex at her promotion party. No degree, no future, she said. Her parents laughed. Everyone laughed. I raised my glass, said, "You'll never see me again," and walked out. What she didn't know, I'd been planning my exit for weeks. And I wasn't leaving empty-handed. My name is Elias Vance. I'm 44 years old, and I used to think I had built something solid. Started as a landscape designer 20 years ago, the kind of guy who got his hands dirty planting trees and designing gardens for country estates. Nothing fancy, but I learned the business side, saved smart, and over the years I've built it into something bigger. Commercial nurseries, contracts with hotel chains across 3 regions, the kind of operation that supplied the greenery for convention centers and corporate campuses. Nobody knew because I never bragged. That wasn't my style. Isabel knew, or she should have. We've been married for 12 years. She was my wife, my partner, or at least I thought so. She worked in advertising, climbed the ladder at one of those boutique agencies downtown, account executive, then senior account executive, and last month she made partner. Big promotion, big party planned at the Grand Beaumont Ballroom. I was proud of her. I told her that the night of the party. I wore the navy suit she'd picked out for me 2 years ago, pressed shirt, polished shoes, even trimmed my beard tighter than usual. I wanted to look the part, supportive husband. I arrived with her, smiled at her coworkers, shook hands with people whose names I forget by morning. The room was elegant, high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, the kind of place that charges 40 pounds for a steak. Her parents were there, Laurent and Amélie. They sat near the front, already 3 drinks deep, laughing too loud at jokes that weren't funny. They never liked me much. I wasn't corporate enough, didn't have a degree, didn't wear a tie to family dinners, but I respected them because Isabel loved them. The speeches started around 8. Her boss went first, praising her vision and dedication. Then Isabel stood up. The room quieted. She held a champagne flute like it was a microphone, and her voice carried across the ballroom with a confidence I used to admire. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," Isabel began, her smile wide and practiced. "This promotion means everything to me. It's validation that hard work pays off, that ambition matters." People clapped. I clapped, too, standing near the bar with my own glass of champagne that tasted too sweet. Then she turned slightly, gestured in my direction without quite looking at me, and said, "And I'd like to introduce you all to my ex-husband." She paused. The room went silent. No college degree, no real future. But hey, he can still arrange a nice flower bed. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not roaring, just polite chuckles from people who didn't know me and didn't care. Her boss smirked. A few coworkers exchanged glances. And her parents. Laurent actually slapped his knee, wheezing with laughter. Amélie covered her mouth, but her eyes sparkled with amusement. I stood there, one hand in my pocket, the other holding a glass of champagne. My face didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just watched her bask in the attention, watched the room validate her cruelty with their laughter. She still wasn't looking at me. That was the part that hurt most. I wasn't a person to her in that moment. I was a punchline. I counted to 3 in my head slowly. Then I raised my glass, not in celebration, but in farewell. I caught her eye, forced her to see me one last time. "Cheers," I said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "You'll never see me again." And I walked. No scene, no shouting, just the sound of my shoes on polished marble. Behind me, the jazz band started up again. The party resumed. I heard laughter fade as I pushed through the lobby doors into the cool night air. I got in my car, reached into the glove compartment, and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying for 3 weeks. Inside were documents I'd signed, notarized, finalized. I drove to the 24-hour international courier service, dropped it in the overnight box, and watched it disappear into the system. Isabel thought that night was her beginning. She had no idea it was my ending. Isabel stumbled through the front door around midnight. The Uber driver had tried making conversation about the party, but she'd barely heard him. Her head buzzed with champagne and compliments. Her phone filled with congratulatory texts from colleagues. The promotion was official. The speech had landed perfectly. Everything felt right. The house was dark. Too dark. "Elias," she called out, kicking off her heels by the door. They clattered against the hardwood. No answer. She flicked on the kitchen light, expecting to see him at the table with a book or his laptop. Empty. Maybe he'd gone to bed early. He did that sometimes when he was upset, though she couldn't imagine why he'd be upset tonight. It was just a joke. Everyone laughed. He'd get over it like he always did. Isabel walked down the hallway, her stocking feet silent on the floor. Something felt off. The air seemed different, lighter somehow. When she reached the bedroom, she hit the light switch. His side of the closet stood open, empty. No jackets, no work boots, no flannel shirts he wore on weekends. Just bare hangers swaying slightly in the air conditioning. Her breath caught. She spun toward the dresser. His drawers pulled open, completely empty. No socks, no watches, no wedding ring in the small dish he always used. What the hell? She whispered. On the nightstand sat a single piece of paper folded once. Her hands trembled as she picked it up and read the handwritten note. You call me your ex tonight. Congratulations. You were right. The house is yours. All of it. Every payment, every repair, every problem. I've removed my name from the mortgage and the deed. Check your email for the documentation. Everything joined has been divided. My portion withdrawn. Don't try to find me. You won't. No signature. No anger. Just facts. Isabel sat on the edge of the bed, the note crumpling in her fist. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to sulk for a day, maybe sleep on the couch, then forgive her like he always did. She grabbed her phone and called him, straight to voicemail. She called again. Same result. Elias, this is ridiculous, she said to his voicemail. It was a joke. Call me back. We need to talk about this. But even as she said it, staring at the empty closet and the cold space where his things used to be, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Fear. Isabel spent the next 3 days in a fog of denial and anger. She called Elias's number 47 times. Every single call went straight to voicemail. She texted, she emailed, she even tried messaging him on LinkedIn. Nothing. Radio silence. On Thursday morning, she drove to his office. The commercial nursery sat on 10 acres outside the city, greenhouses gleaming in the morning sun. She'd only been there twice in 12 years. It wasn't her world. The receptionist, a young woman named Eliza, looked up from her computer with a polite smile that died when she recognized Isabel. Is Elias available? Isabel asked, trying to sound casual. Eliza's expression shifted. Professional, but cold. Mr. Vance is no longer with the company. Isabel blinked. What do you mean no longer with the company? He owns it. He sold his controlling interest 3 weeks ago, Eliza said carefully. The new ownership took over on Monday. Mr. Vance is pursuing other opportunities. 3 weeks. He'd been planning this for 3 weeks. Where did he go? Isabel demanded. I'm not at liberty to say. Eliza's tone made it clear the conversation was over. Isabel left without another word. In her car, she pulled up their banking app again, hands shaking. The joint accounts were split cleanly, but when she checked her email, she found a message from their accountant dated 2 days before the party. Per Elias's request, attached are the finalized documents for account separation and asset division. All investments held in his name have been transferred to his new accounts. The house remains in your sole name as of April 18th. Let me know if you need anything else. April 18th, 5 days before her promotion party. She opened the attachments, investment accounts she didn't even know existed. Stock portfolios, real estate holdings, a commercial property lease in Zurich, Switzerland. The numbers made her dizzy. He'd been worth far more than she'd ever realized, and now it was gone. All of it. Clean, legal, irreversible. Her phone rang. Her mother, Amelie. Sweetheart, have you heard from Elias? Your father tried calling him about golf this weekend. Isabel's throat tightened. He left, Mum. Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, left? What do you mean left? He moved out. Filed paperwork. Took everything. He's gone. Another pause. Well, honey, you did call him your ex at the party in front of everyone. Maybe you just need some time to cool down. Isabel's grip on the phone tightened. You laughed, Mum. You and Dad both laughed. Her mother's voice turned defensive. It was a joke, Isabel. We thought you two were playing around. You know how your father is. He laughs at everything. It wasn't funny to him. Then maybe you shouldn't have said it. Her mother's tone had shifted now, carrying an edge Isabel hadn't expected. That man worked hard for you, supported you through 3 job changes, and you humiliated him. The line went dead. Isabel sat in the parking lot of Elias's former business, surrounded by the green empire he'd built, while she'd been too busy climbing her own ladder to notice. For the first time, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. 10 days after the party, Isabel's phone buzzed with a notification she wasn't expecting. Tagged in a photo on Facebook by Camilla Moreau, a college acquaintance she hadn't spoken to in 5 years. She opened it, curiosity overriding caution. The photo showed a conference room in what looked like an upscale hotel, Zurich Business Center. According to the location tag, a panel discussion, judging by the setup. 5 people sat at a long table with microphones, name placards in front of each. And there he was, Elias, center position. He wore a charcoal suit she'd never seen before, tailored perfectly. His hair was shorter, professionally styled. He looked confident, composed, like he belonged exactly where he was sitting. The nameplate read, Elias Vance, Director of Acquisition Strategy, Langford Development Group. Director? Langford Development Group? Isabel zoomed in on the photo. Next to him sat a woman in a burgundy blazer, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Professional, polished, the kind of woman who looked like she ran boardrooms before breakfast. Her nameplate read, Serafina Keller, co-founder and strategic development. They weren't touching, but something about the way they sat, the comfortable proximity, the easy body language, made Isabel's stomach turn. Camilla's caption read, Amazing insights at the Langford Summit today. Elias Vance absolutely killed it. Talking about sustainable growth strategies in secondary markets. Also, who is this stunning woman next to him? Power couple energy. Power couple. Isabel scrolled through the comments. 23 of them, mostly from business professionals congratulating Elias, asking questions about Langford, praising his presentation. One comment stood out from someone named Marcus Schmidt. Elias, great seeing you again. That Zurich project is going to revolutionize the market. Drinks next week. She clicked on Elias's profile. Updated 3 days ago. New profile picture. Same professional headshot. New job title listed. New city. Zurich, Switzerland. He'd moved. Built a new career. Found new people. And he looked happier than she'd seen him in years. Isabel's hands trembled as she set the phone down. She'd spent 10 days trying to reach him, trying to explain, trying to apologize, and he'd spent those same 10 days building a life that didn't include her. She looked around her living room. The house she now owned outright. The mortgage she'd have to pay alone. The roof that needed replacing. The foundation issues Elias had mentioned months ago that she'd ignored. He'd left her the house, but it wasn't a gift. It was an anchor, and she was drowning. Her phone buzzed again. Another notification. This time, an email from the city's code enforcement office. Notice of violation. Property at 1147 Ashmont Lane. Drainage issues affecting neighboring properties. Immediate remediation required. Estimated cost £8,500. Failure to comply will result in daily fines. Isabel read it twice. Then she opened her banking app and looked at her balance. After bills and mortgage, she had maybe £12,000 in savings. Elias had known. He'd known about the drainage, about the roof, about all of it. And he'd given it all to her. Not out of generosity, out of strategy. She'd called him a man with no future. Turned out he'd been building one all along, just not with her. 3 weeks after Elias left, Isabel's phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. London area code. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Mrs. Du Bois, this is Victor Rossi from Rossi & Associates. I represent your husband in matters related to your marriage dissolution. Isabel's stomach dropped. Dissolution? We're not getting divorced. Ma'am, I have paperwork here that suggests otherwise. Mr. Vance filed for legal separation on April 20th. We're simply following procedure. April 20th, 3 days before her party. I need to speak with him, Isabel said, hating how desperate she sounded. Can you give me his number? His address. I'm not at liberty to share that information. However, I am authorized to inform you of several matters. First, Mr. Vance has requested that you cease all attempts to contact him through third parties, including family members and former colleagues. He can't just... Second, the lawyer continued smoothly. Regarding the property at 1147 Ashmont Lane, Mr. Vance had a comprehensive inspection done in January. You'll be receiving a copy of that report. The estimated repairs total approximately £32,000. He wanted you to be fully informed. Isabel's hand tightened on the phone. He knew. He knew about all the problems. Yes, ma'am. He documented everything thoroughly, which brings me to the third matter. Mr. Vance has discovered some irregularities in your joint finances. Specifically, credit card accounts opened in his name without his knowledge or consent. Total debt approximately £41,000. The room tilted. Isabel's voice came out barely above a whisper. I can explain that. Mr. Vance is prepared to forgive that debt and not pursue legal action for identity fraud, provided you agree to certain terms. You keep the house, all associated debts, and all repair responsibilities. He keeps his business assets, investments, and retirement accounts. A clean division, no alimony, no claims on future earnings. And if I don't agree, then he'll file a police report for identity theft and credit fraud. The evidence is quite substantial. Receipts, statements, documentation showing the cards were opened using his information while he was out of town. It would likely result in criminal charges. Isabel felt sick. The cards. She'd opened them 2 years ago when her company was going through restructuring and she wasn't sure about her job security. She needed new clothes for interviews, money for networking dinners. She'd meant to pay them off before he noticed. But then her job stabilized and she forgot, and the balances kept growing. I'll sign, she whispered. Excellent. I'll have the documents couriered to you tomorrow. Sign in front of a notary and return them within 7 days. He paused. Mrs. Du Bois, off the record, I've been practicing family law for 28 years. Most men in your husband's position would have burned everything down out of spite. He didn't. He planned methodically, protected himself legally, and gave you an out that keeps you from criminal prosecution. That's remarkable restraint. He's punishing me, Isabel said. No, ma'am. He's freeing himself. There's a difference. The line went dead. Isabel sat at her kitchen table surrounded by bills she could barely afford and repair estimates she couldn't ignore, and realized Elias hadn't just left her. He checkmated her. Every move planned, every escape route closed, every consequence delivered with surgical precision. And the worst part, she'd handed him the knife. Isabel's brother called that evening. Julian, 2 years younger, a high school teacher in Manchester. They talked maybe twice a year, usually at holidays. I heard about Elias, Julian said without preamble. Who told you? Mom. She's worried about you. He paused. I'm calling because I think you need to hear something you're not going to like. Isabel braced herself. Go ahead. Elias was a good man, Isabel. Better than you deserved. The words stung more than she expected. Julian, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Julian interrupted. I was at that party. I heard what you said. I saw Dad laugh. I saw Elias's face. His voice hardened. You know what I did after he left? I followed him out to the parking lot. Caught him before he drove away. Isabel's breath caught. What did he say? He said, tell your sister I hope she finds someone who fits her ambitions. I'm done trying to be small enough for her world. Julian exhaled slowly. Then he shook my hand. Thanked me for always being decent to him. And drove away. That was it. No anger, no drama, just done. I didn't mean to hurt him, Isabel said, her voice breaking. But you did, repeatedly. I watched it happen over the years. The way you introduced him at family gatherings. The way you talked about his work like it was a hobby. The way you corrected him in front of people. Julian's disappointment was palpable. He built you a garden at Mom and Dad's house for their anniversary. Designed it, planted it, maintained it for 3 years. You told people Mom hired a landscaper. Isabel closed her eyes. She remembered Elias had spent weeks on that project, coming home with dirt under his fingernails, excited about the native plants he'd sourced. She'd barely looked at it. I'm calling to tell you something else, Julian continued. Elias reached out to me last week. Asked if I wanted to grab dinner next time he's in London. I said yes, because unlike you, I actually valued having him in the family. Julian, please, I'm not choosing sides, Isabel. I'm choosing decency. And right now, Elias represents that more than you do. He paused. Fix yourself. Figure out why you need to tear him down to feel big. Because until you do, you're going to keep losing people. The line went dead for the second time that day. Isabel walked to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Designer clothes, professional makeup, the face of success. But behind it, she barely recognized herself. Her phone buzzed. A text from her father. Your mother and I are taking a break from family dinners for a while. We need to think about some things, including how we treated Elias. Isabel slid down the bathroom wall and sat on the cold tile floor, and finally let herself cry. 6 weeks after Elias left, an envelope arrived. No return address, postmark from Zurich. Isabel recognized the handwriting immediately. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a photograph. The letter was brief, one sentence. I spent 12 years building a future around you. You spent 12 seconds destroying it. Isabel's hands trembled as she read it 3 times, each word cutting deeper than the last. The photograph was worse. Someone had captured the exact moment from the party. Isabel stood at the podium, champagne glass raised, mouth open mid-laugh. Her parents were visible in the background, both grinning. And Elias standing near the bar, holding his glass, not smiling, not even looking at her, looking through her, past her, like he'd already left in every way that mattered. She hadn't seen this photo before, didn't know it existed. But now, staring at it, she could see what everyone else must have seen. A woman who thought cruelty was comedy. A man who'd finally had enough. Isabel set the photo on her kitchen table and stared at it for an hour. She'd replayed that night 1,000 times in her mind, but seeing it frozen in time made it undeniable. She'd been proud of herself in that moment. Proud of the laugh she'd gotten. Proud of her cleverness. She'd been a monster. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop trying to contact Elias through his family. They've made their choice. Respect it. She didn't recognize the number, but the message was clear. Someone in his circle was watching, protecting him, making sure she stayed away. Isabel typed out a response. Please tell him, I'm sorry. Please. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply came. She walked to her bedroom and opened the closet. Elias's side still empty, a void that seemed to grow larger each day. She pulled out a box from the top shelf, one she hadn't opened in years. Inside were photos from their early days. Elias at 28, building a garden bed at their first apartment. Elias at 32, covered in dirt, grinning at the camera after finishing a major project. Elias at 36, quiet and steady at their anniversary dinner. In every photo, he was looking at her like she was everything. Why had that stopped? When had she stopped seeing him as a partner and started seeing him as an accessory? When had his quiet strength become something to mock instead of treasure? She found their wedding photo. They looked so young, so hopeful. His hand rested on her waist, protective and proud. She remembered that day. Remembered him crying when she walked down the aisle. Remembered him promising to build her a life worth living. He'd kept that promise, and she'd thrown it back in his face for a cheap laugh. Isabel put the photos away, unable to look at them anymore. She walked through the house, Elias's house. Really, the one he'd maintained and improved while she'd barely noticed. Fresh paint in the hallway he'd done last summer. The deck he'd rebuilt 3 years ago. The garden he planted and tended every weekend. Everywhere she looked, she saw evidence of a man who'd loved her quietly, practically, consistently, and she'd repaid him with contempt. Her phone rang. Her boss. Isabel, we need to talk about the Baxter account. They're pulling out, said they don't feel comfortable working with us anymore. After that video circulated, Isabel's stomach dropped. What video? The one from your promotion party. Someone posted it online. It's making us look unprofessional. I need you to come in tomorrow. We're discussing your position. The call ended. Isabel pulled up her social media, searched her name, and found it. The video posted by someone from the party shared and reshared across platforms. Her voice clear as day. This is my ex-husband. No college degree, no real future. The comments were savage. Hundreds of them, calling her toxic, cruel, karma-seeking, and worse. People had found Elias's profile, his new position at Langford Development, and were celebrating his success while condemning her behavior. She'd wanted to shine that night. Instead, she'd set herself on fire. 2 months after Elias left, Isabel received something she never expected. A formal invitation, heavy cardstock, elegant lettering. Langford Development Group cordially invites you to our annual Growth Summit. Zurich, Switzerland. Keynote speaker, Elias Vance, Director of Acquisition Strategy. Her name was printed at the bottom. Table 46. Far from the stage. Isabel stared at it for 10 minutes. Tried to understand. Why would he invite her? Was this an olive branch? A chance to talk? She called the number on the invitation. A pleasant woman answered. Yes, Mrs. Du Bois is on our benefactor guest list. We send invitations to all significant parties associated with our speakers. Did Elias specifically request I be invited? A pause. I don't have that information, ma'am, but you're welcome to attend if you choose. Isabel hung up, mind racing. This could be her chance. A chance to apologize face to face, to explain, to somehow make him understand that she'd made a terrible mistake. She booked a flight to Zurich. The event was held at a luxury hotel downtown, the kind with valet parking and doormen in uniforms. Isabel wore a navy dress, simple and understated. She arrived early, checked in, and found her table. Table 46 was in the back near the bar, close to the kitchen entrance, far from the stage where Elias would speak. She wasn't a guest of honor. She was barely a guest at all. The ballroom filled quickly, business executives, investors, development partners. Everyone looked successful, confident, like they belonged. Isabel felt like an intruder. Then the lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the stage, and Elias walked out. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, hair styled professionally, presence commanding. The room quieted instantly. He looked different, stronger, more certain, like he'd shed a weight he'd been carrying for years. Thank you for being here tonight, Elias began, his voice clear and steady. This year has been transformative for Langford Development. But more than that, it's been transformative for me personally. Isabel's heart pounded. I spent a long time letting other people define my worth, Elias continued. I made myself small to fit someone else's vision of success. I thought loyalty meant silence. I thought love meant enduring disrespect. He paused, scanning the room. I was wrong. People nodded. Some applauded quietly. Sometimes you have to lose everything to see what was never truly yours. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from people who can't see your value. His words struck Isabel like physical blows. He wasn't looking at her, wasn't acknowledging her presence, but every word felt aimed directly at her heart. This isn't a story about revenge, Elias said. It's about reclamation, about deciding you deserve better and having the courage to pursue it. The room erupted in applause. Elias smiled, genuine and relaxed, and stepped back. A woman joined him on stage. Serafina Keller, the co-founder Isabel had seen in photos. She wore an elegant black dress, her presence equally commanding. They stood together, comfortable, equal, and began a presentation about sustainable development strategies. Their chemistry was obvious, not romantic necessarily, but respectful, collaborative, genuine. Isabel watched from table 46, invisible in the back of the room as Elias received a standing ovation. Watched him shake hands and exchange hugs with people who valued him. Watched him laugh freely, unburdened. And she realized he hadn't invited her here as an olive branch. He'd invited her to witness what happened when you threw away something precious. He'd invited her to see exactly what she'd lost. After the summit, Isabel couldn't let it go. She'd watched Elias thrive, watched him stand on that stage like he owned the world, and something desperate took hold. She found Serafina Keller's LinkedIn profile, sent a message request. When it was accepted 2 days later, she typed carefully, "Hi, Serafina. We haven't officially met, but I'm Isabel Du Bois, Elias's ex-wife. I think you should know some things about him before you get too involved. He has issues with commitment and honesty. He left me without warning after years of marriage. He's not who he appears to be. Just thought you should know. She hit send before she could reconsider. 3 hours later, her phone rang. Elias's number. Her heart leaped. She answered immediately. Hello, Isabel. His voice was cold. What did you just send, Serafina? I was trying to warn her. She deserves to know. She forwarded it to me immediately. Elias interrupted. She found it pathetic and manipulative. So did I. Isabel's throat tightened. Elias, please. I just want to talk. I made a mistake. I know that now. Can't we just know? The word was final. You had 12 years to talk. You chose to mock me instead. You don't get to rewrite history now that I'm successful. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry you lost. You're not sorry for what you did. He paused. I'm filing a restraining order. Stay away from me. Stay away from Serafina. Stay away from anyone in my life. This ends now. Elias, wait. Goodbye, Isabel. The line went dead. 2 days later, a process server handed her papers at her front door. Restraining order approved by a judge. She was to maintain at least 500 feet from Elias Vance, Serafina Keller, and Langford Development Properties. Her attorney looked over the documents and shook his head. You contacted his business partner after he explicitly told you to stop. That's harassment. If you violate this order, you'll face criminal charges. He closed the folder. My advice. Move on. You've lost this battle. Isabel sat in her house, the one that was slowly bankrupting her, surrounded by repair bills she couldn't afford and a reputation she couldn't rebuild, and finally accepted the truth. Elias wasn't coming back. He wasn't going to forgive her. He'd moved on to a life where she didn't exist, and every attempt to claw her way back had only made her look more desperate. She'd wanted to be the star of her own story. Instead, she'd become the villain in his. At work, her position remained precarious. 3 clients had left after the video went viral. Her boss had quietly suggested she might want to look for opportunities elsewhere. Isabel pulled up job listings, but her heart wasn't in it. Everything felt hollow now. The ambition that had driven her for years had burned out, leaving only ash. She looked at the photo Elias had sent her. The moment she destroyed everything for a laugh that lasted 12 seconds. Some mistakes you can fix. Some mistakes you can apologize for. And some mistakes you have to live with, knowing you'll never get the chance to make them right. Isabel folded the photo and put it in a drawer. Not to forget, but to remember. Remember what it costs to mistake cruelty for cleverness. Remember what it costs to tear someone down to feel tall. Remember that some people, once they walk away, never look back. 14 months after Elias walked out of that party, Isabel sat in a small apartment across town. She'd sold the house, finally taking a loss but escaping the crushing weight of repairs and mortgage payments. The apartment was modest, 1 bedroom, basic kitchen, nothing like the suburban showcase she'd once been so proud of, but it was hers and she could afford it. She'd taken a new job at a smaller agency, less prestigious, lower pay, but they didn't know about the video, didn't know about her past. It was a fresh start, or as close to one as she could manage. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian. Dinner next week. Mom and Dad want to see you. They'd reconciled slowly over the past year. It hadn't been easy. Her parents still carried guilt about that night, about their laughter, about enabling her worst impulses. But they were trying, and so was she. Isabel had started therapy, spent months unpacking why she needed to diminish Elias to feel successful. The answer wasn't simple, but it was honest. She'd been insecure, compensating, afraid that his quiet competence made her loud ambition look shallow. She'd been right to be afraid. It had been shallow. On her laptop, she pulled up Elias's company website. Langford Development had expanded into 3 new markets. Elias was now VP of Strategic Growth. The photo on his bio page showed him confident, accomplished, genuinely happy. Next to the company news section was an announcement. Langford Development co-founder Serafina Keller and VP Elias Vance announced their engagement, wedding planned for next spring. Isabel stared at the announcement for a long moment. No jealousy this time, just acceptance. He'd found someone who saw his value, someone who built alongside him instead of tearing him down. She closed the laptop and looked around her small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was honest. No pretense, no performance, just a woman learning to be better than she'd been. Her phone rang. Her boss. Isabel, that pitch you did yesterday for the Henderson account? They loved it. Signed a 2-year contract. Well done. Thank you, she said quietly. Small victories. That's what her therapist called them. Not the grand gestures or the big promotions, but the daily work of being decent, being honest, being someone she could look at in the mirror without flinching. Isabel walked to her small balcony and looked out over the city. Somewhere out there, Elias was building a life with someone who deserved him. And somewhere in here, she was building a life where she didn't need to destroy others to feel whole. It wasn't a future she'd imagined that night at the party, standing under chandeliers, basking in applause. It was smaller, quieter, humbler, but it was real. And maybe, finally, that was enough. She'd spent 12 years with a man who'd loved her quietly and completely. She'd thrown it away for 12 seconds of laughter that still echoed in her nightmares. Some lessons come with a price. Hers? It cost her everything. But she learned it finally, painfully, completely. And in the end, that was all she could do. Learn, grow, and hope that somewhere down the line, she'd become the person Elias had once believed she could be, even if he'd never know it. Even if it was too late. Some bridges, once burned, stay burned forever.